Good afternoon. It's Wednesday. Out of breath. I broke every rule. I say, everybody in the studio by 10 minutes till, and then we just wait and be ready. And at 1 minute till, I'm like, I got one more thing to go get because I needed to go get something else. You know how it is. So I'm just getting my mask and my glasses put away so that I'm ready for you. Deep breath. I did get my coffee made though, and that's part of the problem is I've been imbibing on coffee all afternoon and I'm just spinning, but I have so many cool ideas that my brain went on overload today. So how in the heck are you? Let's turn it back over to your side. I've been but how are you? Have you had a good week? I know some of you are snowed in to the yin-yang. It's just been amazing looking at the snowstorms. Those of you on the East Coast, oh my goodness. And now rains are heading out here. We're under a flood watch, which we're not in a flood area at all. Don't worry about us. But some of the rivers around are going to go higher and over their banks. Our mountain, the ski resort, actually had to close because there was too much snow. I mean, how cool is that? They opened today, so I know they are doing a happy dance. So now there'll probably be a traffic jam of all the skiers trying to get up there for the new snow. But been a pretty wicked, wild time. And that's kind of where we are right now in our world of flowers, and we're in a wild time. So I dressed appropriately, going in the wild time shirt, because we're all getting ready for the new year, the new holidays. Valentine's is just around the corner, adapting to the new world, and trying to stay true to our morals, our ideals, our values, our brand, and what does that all mean? So I thought, what a great way to start the year with a live looking at eco choices, sustainable practices, seasonal. You've heard all of the, buy local, do this, do that. Well, right now, if you're in Wyoming, bet there's not much local that you can buy. Not all of us are lucky enough to live close to the farms in California. Now, if you're in Australia, where many of you are, right now seasonal is fabulous. You've got things in bloom. That southern hemisphere, you're winning. For us here in the Northwest, if you think about seasonal, local, available, this side is kind of what you're looking at. Branches, dried berries. More branches, and the blooming branches are starting to come if you bring them in and force them. So if you pick them, bring them in, put them in the heat and force them, you're getting them. Now, local purchasing in our greenhouses, so it's not truly seasonal, it's forced seasonal. Tulips are abundant right now in our local purchasing. Hyacinths are abundant. Foliages we can get. Right now, Floral would be my local. If you're in Florida, it might be Ruscus. If you're in California, there might be some succulents and some fatsia. If you're in Australia, you might have more of the, what would you say, maybe leucospermum, more of the Aussie foliages, as we call them. I don't really know all their names, to be able to be honest with you. But I thought, we're going to try to stay honest to local in Oregon as much as possible, and then also branch out to domestic. I don't have anything that's imported today. We went with things that we could do out of California, although that was even tricky because the freeway between California and Oregon was closed. The Siskiyou Pass closed. It's been quite the interesting time. So as I'm going, I would love it if you would introduce yourself, let us know where you're from, and this will be our fun thing for today. What's the temperature where you are? Now, some of you are going to be Celsius, some of you are going to be Fahrenheit, so make sure you make a note. We are 45 degrees Fahrenheit, or we're negative 16 Fahrenheit, or I'm 32 Celsius. I don't know. What are you? So put your temperature in there. And then you might note, is it raining? Is it snowy? What's your story? I can tell you around here, we're in the 40s now. It's gotten milder. We're past our little cold streak, and it is raining. Raining cats and dogs. It is pouring. I was pretty wet by the time I got here today because I always walk from the house to here back and forth, and it's long enough to get drenched. But, I had a hat on. Doesn't matter. I'm not so sweet that I'm going to melt. So if you'll put in there where you're from, who you are, your temperature, and what's going on in the world. And one more thing for you all. Probably this is the most important before I do introductions of everybody. It's Carolyn's birthday. Yesterday, Teacher Carolyn had a birthday. So let's all send out a birthday greeting to Teacher Carolyn because she's with us in the virtual world today, and she worked on her birthday too. So let's do a happy birthday to Teacher Carolyn. In the studio, we're back in full glory. We've got everybody on hand. I've got Parker on tech, Teacher Marisa, Teacher Michelle are both monitoring everything to give me the verbal, and then in the virtual world we have Susie, Caledonia, Carolyn. I think Shell is out there today too, so it's going to be a full house with lots of tulips. So I'm going to get started. We'll talk about some design, and while I'm pulling things out, what's going on out there?
Well, I have a ton of tulips over here on Facebook, and I see John, Carl, Cherie, Wendy, David, Gayla, Kim, Scott, Roxy, Nicole, Jennifer, Carolyn, Pam, Kim, Julie, Robin, Janet, Angie, Nikki, another Julie, Dorian, and another Julie.
I love it. Grand. Welcome to you all.
Oh, and we have a first timer too, Marilyn from South Africa.
Well, Marilyn from South Africa, welcome. I'm glad you found us. And all of you tulips, will you welcome Marilyn, first timer? And if anybody else is a first timer, let us know. We love to have you join us. The more, the merrier. Michelle, what's going on in your world?
Well, everybody's clocking in, putting in their locations and their temperatures. We've got Avery. Sinette says it's 30 degrees Celsius where she is. Okay. Taylor, Valerie, Janet, Rose, who's in California, has a lovely 71.
Oh!
Jealous. Mona, Anna, Ionella. Laura is at 51 degrees, but she didn't say where she is. Ionella is in Romania and said to tell you a very special Happy New Year.
Oh, wonderful. Hi there from Romania. Okay, so what I did is I just pulled out a bunch of stuff because with the supply chain disruption and with making choices, many people have chosen to start avoiding floral foam. It's a conscious decision to stay true to their earth conscious values. Others, rather than giving it up totally, are looking at reducing and using a foam that has less of a footprint. So they might be switching to the midnight foam, which has a higher enhanced biodegradability. So it can be a little bit more earth friendly. Unfortunately, many of the tulips have been reporting in to me that they're having a hard time purchasing the foam. And if they do find it, the price has gone up so high that they're having to reevaluate their foam usage. So those options are there. I'm going to set them aside today. You've seen me design with foam a lot, and so today I thought let's just kind of look at alternatives. But those are some thoughts. One, use less, maybe smaller pieces, not as much of it, or switch to one that is enhanced biodegradable so that it is a little better for the earth. Or yet another option would be to go to the foam alternatives. And you've seen us design with this a bit before. This is the Agra wool. It's a nice alternative. We'll be using it in class when they join us in January. Class starts on the 10th, I guess a little over a week from now, a week and a half. And we'll be using midnight foam, standard foam, Agra wool, no foam, alternative mechanics, because we give you the full spectrum so you can see how that all works. Kind of interesting. The terminology when you talk to different Facebook groups now is that it's old school and new school. Well, around here we're pretty much all school because you need old, you need new, you need to be aware You need to make your own choices. Then I pulled out some different kins-ons that I have, pin cushions and frogs and such. And I just tried to pick some that were a little different than the norm. I love this one. Look at that. It's got the hole in the center and it's got a little notch here. So it's almost like it maybe was designed to fit a particular container, but I don't know. Is that not interesting? So I'm not sure why. And I did a Google search on it from the image and it came up with some industrial part. It's not that. It is a pin cushion, kins-on, but I thought that was interesting. Just wanted to share with you. This is one, an odd shape, and it has little valleys that go in so that you could put larger stems without having to put them through a pin. So it gives you flexibility. Then there are the ones that are built more like cages. So this would be the precursor to the eggs and pillows that Syndicate is selling. It's the same thing, just old school instead of new school. There's one that's a little larger, gives you some flexibility in design. And then here's a glass one that's pretty funky and fun, works out well. And then this is a new one that I was just gifted that is so cool. It's actually a lotus, if you can see that. It's a lotus, but it comes in parts. So it has the base, like so, and then it has the petals, and then it has the center, which has the actual framework as well. And you can hear my phone ringing. Okay, somebody is calling the flower school. I'm glad you are. And Carolyn answered it, so thank you, Carolyn. I was supposed to turn my ringer off, bad Leanne, but oh well. So you can see how it comes in the pieces, which is very cool. And then overall, it's actually hollow in the bottom so that you set it onto another container to actually hold the water. So this is just the decorative frog portion. So I thought I'd experiment with some of these today and share. Then I also had this one, which is a slate piece, which you've seen me use before, and I've used it on some of our videos. One of my favorites, and it's got a frog just nestled inside that's already there. This one fits directly in the top of a vase, so you can just set it in without breaking. There we go. And then you design into the top like that. Pretty cool, don't you think? You know, all of these things are old school that we're starting to be more aware of now as we go forward. This one can sit like so on a bubble bowl, and then the stems go in. Or this is a tray that I own. It's made for holding florals. You can put a frog right in like so, and it holds water. Or it holds the lotus well, just like that. So as I work today, these are the containers I'm going to be using. I'll be showing some different things and looking at alternative mechanics and how we combine old school with new school to have all school and talk about truly becoming sustainable, eco, and true to our values. So the first question, again, after all those other questions, so we did happy birthday to Carolyn. We said, what's your temperature? Where are you from? And your tulip, welcome the newbies, all of that. Now, you get to choose. Do you want me to design the lotus on the tray? Or do you want the lotus on the bowl? So you just type it in there, and Marisa and Michelle and Parker, you guys keep track and let me know which one I'm doing, and we'll save that one for a little bit later after we know what I'm going to do. So is it at the tray or the bowl? So my first one I'll do is my slate, because I like that, and I thought, oh, that would be a fun one to start with. So that's where I'm beginning.
I can't keep up with their answers.
I know,
That's what
like,
I'm
bing, bing, bing. Holy cow.
We got lots of answers. Well, I love you. Love you for that, because that way I know you listen. That makes me happy. So adding water into my vessel, and it is watertight. I love this. I got this years and years and years ago up at the Seattle Flower and Garden Show. There was a booth that had all kinds of different slate, and I bought 3 of them. This was the largest one, and then there's a little tiny one, and then one in the middle. And I use them a lot in January, I find, because January is a time where I start thinking about what's in season, what's local, and also I want to simplify, because December is so glittery and red and over the top. When I purge and get cleaned up, January I tend to go white, minimal, natural, and I get much more intentional in my plans. So I thought, well, that's what I'm going to start with. And then Teacher Marisa went to the market yesterday for me, and look at that magnolia branch. Seasonal, local, definitely an earth-friendly choice. It's a renewable resource, all those things. And look at all these buds to come out. It's going to be just fabulous. And when you're working with the magnolia, it is so big and heavy. I actually use a lopper when I'm going to cut. So if you've had advanced, you've seen us use the lopper. It's just a great big pruner, and it gives me leverage so that I can cut it without hurting myself. Then the other thing I do is I'll take a little pruner and just kind of chew the end up a bit to make it easier, because it's hard to get it onto the pins otherwise. And even then it's tricky, so I'm just kind of fussing with it a bit. And then I'm going to place it in. Let's see, which direction do I want to go? I think I want to go this way. And let it lean. I have to turn it this way, I think. Okay, Michelle, what's going on in your world?
Well, a couple things. We have a first timer from Pennsylvania. Her name is Rosie, and she is very excited to be here.
Hi, Rosie. Glad you're here.
And then Valerie had a question. What about using frogs when you design and deliver? Is there an inexpensive way to use them, and tips for stabilizing the design?
That's rough. Excellent question, because frogs are not really super deliverable, as you may have found out as you've tried to do so, and they are not inexpensive. They're quite spendy, in fact. So for those of you that are more specialized studio-based, where you may do work at people's homes, that may work better for you, because you can take it, set it up on site, and then pick it back up. And so you've got a little bit of flexibility there. Giving this a windswept look, and I'm really jamming it in. I have to stop talking for just a minute while I do this. There we go. And then I'm also going to wedge it a bit, because I want to make sure that it stays where I want it. So, whoop, it came undone. Let's try that again. There we go. Just needed to pound it a little bit. But then I'm going to take another piece and wedge it slightly, because I want to make sure it doesn't shift on me. So back to the deliverability. That is such a tough call, because they really are not meant to be deliverable. They're meant to be used and designed on site. And so it's a little bit, if not a lot, I don't like that, so I'm going to clip that one down slightly. There we go. If not a lot, hard to do so. I find many times I would sell somebody the container, such as this, and then sell the flowers separately, and let them have the joy of placing them themselves. You may have to send them a little card that says, this is what you're going to do, place one here and one there. It means it has to be overly simplified, but it isn't really deliverable. I couldn't deliver this. It would just all from driving around. So it's the type of thing that you really have to do pretty much on site if you're going to be working on a frog. And that's another thing that I just want to kind of think about as we're talking about sustainable and new and old and all of that. Foam gave us the luxury of deliverability without water slopping all over and stem stability. Floral netting does that, but you've got water slopping. Fronds give you control and some beauty, but not stability for delivery. And the water source is very small, so you've got to make sure that water gets added. None of this is the perfect answer, but it's all something to think about and then adjust how do you want to address that, because there isn't a right or wrong answer. It's all just lots of dilemmas as much as anything. Then hyacinths are great for fragrance, especially this time of year, but they flop over and get out of control. So I like to use it down low. Now it's not going to flop over. Maybe do 2 of them. And that way I get the fragrance and the beauty of the pink without it going crazy. There we go. So now I've got my magnolia that's going to be amazing, my hyacinth that gives me beauty, and then I can come out with something else. I've got to think about, what do I have? Now I've got privet. But privet isn't always beautiful. You can see it's not great. But I can pick out the better pieces and then clean it up a bit. And then place it down in, removing the damaged leaves, and letting it drape outward. Then thinking about my elements and principles, if I put some over here, I need to visually pull it back over the opposite way. So looking for another piece that is decent that I can place in. And just working on a very minimal. Now, is this sellable to the consumer? Probably not. Is it deliverable? No. Is it sustainable? Yes. Is it seasonal? Yes. Oh, all these things gets kind of complicated. Actually, it gets a lot complicated. And I'm sure each of you is finding the same thing as you are struggling with getting flowers in during the snows, trying to find things that you feel are the right things to sell, but still staying true to all the seasons. It's hard. No kidding, is it hard. Okay, so I'm going to set that one aside. Do we know which way we want me to do the lotus yet, or is that still coming in?
What you guys, I mean, hands down.
Bold.
Yeah,
Hands
it's
down
the bold. It was
Like
the bold.
10 to 1.
It was,
The
I
bowl?
think it was,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it was 20-4 on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
Yeah,
guess I'm doing the bowl.
It's like 20-8 over here too.
How fun is that? Okay, well, cool. So I'll go ahead and with that one next, and then I'm going to do a couple of others that maybe are more sellable. This one, not sellable, but it is if you have a specific client that you go in and do their home that they want to do totally seasonal, because it gives you the beauty of the branch, the fragrance, all of the stuff that you're supposed to do with this buy local, buy seasonal, has the limitations. This one is going to have some limitations because not everybody has a lotus ball to work with. That's something that isn't normal, so I'm moving things around here because it's going to take room to set this little baby aside because it's not such a little baby. And I'll bring over my lotus and start by adding a little bit of water. It's been fun for me over these last 10 years watching design change and turned to what I would call new school, and people rediscovering floral netting, rediscovering, I'm going to put a little more water in there, I think, rediscovering frogs, and almost like, oh my gosh, we're the first ones that ever knew this. And the reality is that new school is the old school, and it's just being rediscovered and reinvented. Back in the early 80s, I had the opportunity to work with two florists that were actually florists in the 1920s. So when I worked with them in the 80s, they were much, much, much older. They've both passed now, but Dorothy Schroeder Newell and Leonard Seiler were florists here in Portland, Oregon in the 20s. And they were doing a workshop showcasing old school techniques, so techniques prior to foam. And of course in the 80s we're like, oh my gosh, how could that possibly be? Nobody does that. Oh my goodness. And then move forward to the last 10 years and people are rediscovering what Dorothy and Leonard were sharing. No foam, no problem. Doing an easel spray, hand tie it. And he demonstrated, he did a hand-tied spray with a dozen gladiolas and other flowers. It was stunning. But how many of us could do a hand-tied spray with gladiolas? Now with the foam shortage, we may have to learn how, but he was doing it then. And then Dorothy was talking about how when she got a flower order, it was basically a 3-day cycle. She would get the order, and then she'd go around town to her friends' homes, her friends' gardens, and some of them had little greenhouses, and she would source her flowers. And that could take all day to source flowers. Then she'd go back home to create the arrangement. But think about it. We're talking about times when finances weren't very good. You know, the Depression was going on or having just ended. And so they didn't have vessels at the hand to grab them. So what she would do, and I had to laugh because guess what's hot on Pinterest now, which just cracks me up. But they would do recycled tin cans. So like a soup can or a coffee can or a mason jar. But any container from the kitchen, and if it was a tin can, she would wrap it with like crepe paper. Yeah. Wrapping it with paper, wrap it with fabric, turn it into a vase then to hold those flowers that she had gone and gathered from her neighbors, and then she would deliver it. And so literally it could take 3 days to go through that. So those of us that say, oh my gosh, it's so hard to be a florist, I work so hard, we really don't have a clue. Now it's like, oh, back in the day. So now what I'm doing, I've got my lotus in here, I'm adding in some heather, which 'tis the season for heather. It's not blooming here in Oregon yet, but it is blooming in the warmer areas. California has it. We'll be having it here very shortly. And then we got some sweet peas. It's a little early. I'm stretching it on this one. Sweet peas should be showing up here though pretty quickly out of California. And so, you know, if you're talking local, if you live in California, you win. If you're talking local, that it has to be in the United States, not imported, you win. You know, it depends on what your version of local is. And that's something that we all have to start thinking about, is what truly does local mean? Because it's going to be different for different places and different people and different realities. So I've got my sweet peas and my heather, and aren't those colors great? kind of makes me think of Very Perry, don't you think? So here we have the Pantone color of the year. Next week we're really going to focus on that. I probably shouldn't have done this week because next week we're doing Very Perry, but I thought, oh, it's just so pretty. I have to do that. Let's see. Then I've got, ooh, this could be lovely.
Leanne, while you grab that, Magda said that her grandmother taught her how to use flower frogs, and that's how she first learned to design.
That's great. Kudos to your grandmother for doing that, because it's something that was always taught and learned, and then it became a lost art, and now it's coming back, and that's kind of exciting. This is quince, and this is local. It again is picked and brought in and forced because it's a little early to say that quince is blooming, but if you force it, it's blooming. So I'm just kind of looking to see which branch looks like it would work the best, and it also has to fit into my frog, which is kind of a challenge always. And I think I'm going to see if this one will fit. Pruning it down, measuring, eyeballing, pruning again, and then let's see if it'll fit in a hole. Because that's one thing that I find to be a little tricky when you're working with a frog, is sometimes the holes aren't big enough to hold the flowers that you would like to use. And that one did, except I don't like its placement. So let's see if I can get it out. Okay, and we'll try that one again. I'm going to shorten it a tiny bit, see if I can get it in a little differently, and see if I like its placement better. Finding the hole. There we go. And then adjusting it. So again, this is not deliverable, but again, if you have clients that you do their home, this is the type of thing that they may own vessels that are perfect for this, and you just go in and you design in their location and then leave it. A lot of people are discovering that weekly subscriptions where you go to the home, we have several students that they do the same home every single week and drop off seasonal specific flowers. So this is the way they design, and that's kind of a wonderful format because it limits. Now some people, rather than wrestle with the January blues of, okay, my gosh, I don't have any flowers, what do I use because I'm only sustainable, I'm only seasonal, I'm only local. And many of those florists actually close in January. They do no orders. They just say, this isn't us. And so maybe at December, they finish up with Christmas berries and Christmas foliages and that type of thing, the evergreens, the conifers. And then they offer their clients in January branches. And that's all they get through January until springtime when you get more flowers out there. So it works out fairly well if you can afford to take a month vacation. It works out not so well if you have a store where clients expect you to be there. So it's kind of tricky. Now you can see I'm turning it so you can see it from all sides. It's pretty much a full round arrangement. The branches coming up, the heather, the sweet peas. So while I fuss and do a few more things in here, what else is going on?
Well, Nikki and Scott have a funny little comment here. Nikki says the Lotus kind of looks like a steamer basket. And then Scott says, well, David will probably be using it later to make dinner.
It does sort of look like a steamer basket. I hadn't thought about that, but you are correct. How funny is that? Now, we brought in a couple of things that would be, well, actually several things that would be California specific for seasonal at the moment. And this delphinium was one of them, and it's so pretty. It's just the most beautiful blue. But because it is winter, it's not, see how it's growing crooked and leaning? That's from lack of sunlight. So, you know, and some of them are a little wimpier than others. that's just the nature of the beast. And again, we have to learn to embrace that and just say, well, that's the nature of the beast. That's the way it is. And I think it'll be beautiful in here, carrying out the spectrum to an analogous color harmony.
Leanne, watching you design that, especially in that type of a frog, I'm noticing that it's definitely forcing you to go directly into the binding point.
It is so true. When you work with alternate mechanics, you don't have the privilege of being off center and being a little bit out of line. Because if you're out of line, the whole thing doesn't work. So yes, it is giving me an impeccable binding point. So those of you that have had basic floral design with us, this forces you to utilize the concepts that you've already learned, but without the forgiveness of, well, you're close, it'll be okay. It has to truly be perfectly placed. So good point.
So Natalie, who is a graduate of ours, who is a local farmer here, has a little trick up her sleeve. Her greenhouse, so basically to work around getting local product, she has a greenhouse. So she's got ranunculus and anemones blooming right now.
Oh, how grand. Back to Dorothy and Leonard, that was one of the things that they brought up too, is almost every flower shop had an adjacent greenhouse because they had to be able to have flowers year round. And so they had to grow them. And florists today are realizing that combining flower farming with flower designing is a wonderful way to solve that problem. And having a greenhouse that you can go out and pick from is really great, and it helps solve that seasonality. Now it's an investment in the greenhouse. Many of my friends that have flower shops in Montana, where it can be snowed in, it's a little more difficult. They too have greenhouses together with their flower shops. So that's not a new concept, but it is a great concept that is very important. And I'm glad that she brought that up, because that was one of the things on my notes, is that one thing you can do to extend your growing ability as far as local flowers is to grow your own and having a greenhouse. Michelle, what's up?
Well, you were talking about the basic floral design class, and Maureen had a question. She wanted to know if we offer online floral classes for those who live in the north, and I'm thinking she means Canada, because she said it's minus 25 Celsius today.
Canada's so cold. I know Poppy had put in there that she was minus 26 or 27, I think, and I was just like, oh. But yes, we do have several students that join us from Canada, and thanks to the fact that the program is 100% digital now, you really can do it from all over the world. I was texting today with a student, or messengering, I guess, via Facebook from Pakistan, who is doing the basic course. And she's like, you know, does it work from Pakistan? I'm like, yeah, it works from Pakistan. It works from everywhere. And thank goodness for the digital world, because yes, you can do it from anywhere. And the other thing that's perfect with it is we rewrote the program so that you can use whatever is in season in your environment. You don't have to follow our exact recipe. Yes, we give you recipes, we give you that information, but you can mix and match based on your reality. So I'm going to set this aside and do another one. This one is actually going to be deliverable too. So those of you with flower shops, you can think, okay, well, at least they're going to do something that's deliverable. But I wanted to do a different live this time, because we do everything kind of commercial, because that's what our students are. They're getting jobs in the commercial world, and I feel like that's where you are. But sometimes it's good to mix it up and think a little differently, and so that's what today is. So you guys like this one? Do you like how it turned out with the blues and purples? I did a wedding in this exact palette, all blue and purple, back in the very early 80s. There used to be a hotel called the Red Lion, I think it was, or no, it was a Thunderbird, and they had lights that were all blue and purple, and the couple always used to go and neck and look at those lights, you know, park there and go, oh, smoochy, smoochy. Is necking still a word? But anyway, that, you know, whatever. But anyway, they would go and do that, and those lights were part of their courtship, which is probably also an antique word. And so when I did their wedding, that was the goal. They made me go look at the lights, and I did the whole wedding in this palette. It actually turned out so pretty. Actually very pretty.
Leanne, so this is a little off topic. It's still flowers, but Rose wondered, she watched the Rose parade, the Tournament of Roses parade, and she wondered how they got the flowers to stay on the cars.
Ah, that is a secret. It is funny because I was there, I think it was 5 years ago, that we were on hand to do some photo shoots for a magazine to do that, and I got to go see the cars, and at that time the gentleman that was doing them was just almost mean, like, no, I'm not going to tell. And then I realized he wasn't going to tell because he got to do it every year. He didn't want anybody to know because he didn't want them to steal his ideas. But of course, inquiring minds want to know. So I did go in and spy quite a bit and, you know, touch, because I was part of the press, so I could go do that. But they did make me promise not to tell. Isn't that amazing? It truly is a secret. And just trust me, they are very, 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 very careful of those cars, because any damage on them, the liability is huge. So it is actually, for as long as I know, it's been the same people doing it. And this year, the one that did it all the time that wouldn't tell me anything was a judge, so he was not doing the decorating this year. So Pete Samick was in charge of the car team, but Pete was always on the team before. This time he was just the lead of it. And he actually got to, oh, what's his name? The Grand Marshal, it'll come to me, LeVar Burton? Was that the Grand Marshal? I think so. He actually got to open the door and let him climb in the car and then shut it. Woo-hoo-hoo! Talk about getting to be with fancy people. So anyway, sorry I can't tell you that, Rose, because they made me promise. But it is tricky. It's not the easiest thing, because you've got to protect the car.
Well, now I want to know.
Everybody wants to know. Actually, they are very particular even of who can be in the tent while it's being done, because of protecting their secrets and such. Now, these are pussy willows. This is local pussy willow, and I noticed that Neville posted that pussy willow up in Halifax was actually starting to bud out. And Halifax is really cold, although not as cold this year as some years. And he was surprised it was already budding out, but ours always buds out close to now. It may be a little early, but not too early. And I'm going to take and I put 2 branches in. I'm going to go back and add crosswise. So what I'm doing is creating an armature, but this time I'm doing the armature at the top as opposed to at the bottom. And Parker, do I need to shorten this at all, or am I okay?
No, you're good.
Okay.
We have another first timer on YouTube that just logged in. Michelle from Kula on Maui in Hawaii is joining us.
Oh, hi Michelle from Kula.
She's a protea farmer.
Oh, you know, you guys have some of the best protea there. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's so fun to see. People forget that Hawaii has protea as well. We always think of California as being the protea farms, but Hawaii has lots. Is it called the Upcountry? It was so grand when I got to go through and see. It was just like, ooh, I love that.
So Leanne, there is lots of talk about that Lotus frog that you were playing with. A lot of people were asking about it. Where'd you get it? So it looks like Robin says you can find them on eBay. She just bought one. She's telling everyone to search for Reed and Barton silver plate 3-piece water lily lotus.
That would be it. That's like as specific as you could possibly get. Mine was gifted to me by a friend, so I don't know where it came from, but that's what I would do, is kind of search it on eBay like that. So, Marisa, why don't you say it one more time for those that might have missed it?
Okay, so Robin, it looks like she found it on eBay, but you will search for Reed, R-E-E-D, and Barton, B like boy, A-R-T-O-N, silver plate, 3-piece water lily lotus flower vase bowl dish frog 3002.
I love it. So now you all know where to find it. Yeah, it is a very cool one. So what I've done here, the vase is just filled with water. There's nothing else in here, well, flower food. Water and flower food, that's it. It's just a ceramic vessel. And then I've taken an entire bunch of pussy willow. Yep, I used the whole bunch. And now I'm using brown bind wire. And if you get our Tulip Tuesdays, you know that when you need lots of little pieces of bind wire, just wrap it around your fingers, give it a clip it again, and that way you don't have to cut all those little tiny pieces. Now I have lots of little tiny pieces. If you don't get our Tulip Tuesday, just subscribe to the newsletter. It's on the website. It says subscribe to our newsletter, and with that you'll get our Monday inspirational video, which is always kind of seasonally specific, which we filmed 2 today that are going to be so fun. You're going to love them. I was having a ball doing them. I would say it was a little decadent. I used lots of flowers, and so that was so much fun. And then here I turn around and do no flowers because I'm talking seasonal now, but then I was later in the year, so seasonal could have more in it, and it was just a ton of fun. So anyway, sign up for the newsletter. You'll get the Monday inspirational video. I got sidetracked there. Then you'll get the Tuesday, Tulip Tuesday, which is a how-to tip of just a technique usually to make life easier, and like how to cut bind wire into little pieces without having to do one at a time, or how to keep your tulips straight, or how to secure a heavy branch in foam, or I've got a whole bunch more we're filming probably tomorrow, so you'll have more things to see. It's pretty fun to get all the different information because there's different times that you need it, and it's not pertinent necessarily at the moment, so you don't pay attention, but you can go back because Susie has made a playlist of all the Tulip Tuesdays so that you can just go to YouTube and to the playlists and pick Tulip Tuesday, and it has, I don't know, Susie would know better than I, but 100 and some maybe videos that are just all short, usually 1 to 2 minutes. They're all very, very short, with tips for the pro about how to do things better as a professional, because sometimes you just need a little bit of help. Now I mentioned that Floral is our seasonal green. Now if you're not in the Pacific Northwest, Floral might not be one of yours, but it is for us, and I'm lucky, so I'm going to use it because that gives me a little bit of substance in my vessel, along with the armature of the willow.
Yeah, actually Rachel has a great question. She's saying with containers like these, like the one that you're using that's so vibrant in color, how do you prevent that vase from drawing attention away from the flowers?
Sometimes you want the vase to take that attention, and winter would definitely be one of those times that I would like that, because sometimes you don't have as many great materials in the winter. So if you have a nice vessel, it makes even modest materials seem better. And if you do a lot of corporate orders, corporate clients, where they don't want to spend a lot, but they want it to look like a lot, if you rent them the containers, you get your container back, they get the drama of of a very cool container, and you can put all the money into the flowers, which gives them greater value, you greater value, everything about it just works for everyone. And so it's a matter of making a decision, is that where you want that or not? And you may or may not, it's a tough call. Sometimes you want to make sure that the container is secondary, and other times you want the container to be very important. And you have that choice. Now, I'm placing the tulips lower because we know they're going to grow. So by placing them down, they're going to grow up through that armature and add height and value to this. And the thing that makes it sort of fun for the client is they get to watch it grow. So it becomes kind of an interactive arrangement. It allows them to go, oh my gosh, did you see that? The tulips are growing. Did you know tulips would grow? That's the coolest thing. My tulips are growing. And that magic and excitement helps make January better. So tulips are one of my go-to flowers no matter what in January. When I lived in Seattle, always January 2nd, because they were closed on January 1st, January 2nd, the farmer showed up at the Pike Farmers Market with his tulips. They were greenhouse grown, and every January 2nd I was down there to buy tulips because it was the most favorite thing, because I knew tulips would be there. And in January you need that brightness. So adding in the orange to bring the orange up. Right now the scale is too short, but as they grow they're going to come up, and this is going to come out, adding it fullness this direction to where all of a sudden it matches the look and need for the design. And I can go ahead and put a few more in.
Talk about line and movement.
This is going to have a lot of movement, definitely, as it continues to do its thing. And you can see I've made it so it goes all the way around because I wanted to make sure that it looked good no matter what. This little guy's kind of hiding, so I'm going to remove him and put him back in so he shows a little better. Then sometimes people don't want something quite so big, so you might do something a little smaller. And another technique that works well for dealing seasonal and local and all of that, we talked about greenhouses, but you don't even have to have a greenhouse. You can scavenge from your plants. So this is a Sansevieria snake plant that sits at the accounting desk in the office, and you can see it has grown and gotten really leggy, so it kind of needs to be pruned. And oftentimes plants benefit from pruning, so get plants and use them in your arrangement. So I can go back down here and prune this out, make a decision as to how tall I want to go, place it in, and I've got great foliage that's going to go with my arrangement. Now I might go back and add some red twig dogwood. This is in season. It's just bare branches, definitely in season. And giving it a cut.
So Leanne, Avery is encouraging everybody to give a thumbs up on YouTube, and he would like you to wait and finish the design after we hit 50, which is 4 more likes.
Okay, well, or we could just not finish it. How's that, Yeah, I will finish it. Okay, get me some more likes out there in YouTube land. And Facebook land, if you could, share this out. Let people know. It's a little different live than we normally do, so they might go, what's going on? Those people are being weird this week. But, it's kind of fun to see how it all comes together. So if you haven't shared it out from Facebook, please do. I'd appreciate that. And if you haven't said happy birthday Carolyn yet, please do. I know she'd like that. And if you haven't come to flower school yet, please do. I would like that. Although I only have, I think, 4 spots left on the Monday class. Not this Monday, next Monday, the 10th. We've got 4 spots left there. It's going to be so much fun to be back in the classroom. We haven't been there since the October class because we always take the winter off. So this will be the first class of the year. And it's always a great one because the days are dark and gray. It's cold, it's rainy. It's not a very happy time. But you come to flower school and it brightens your day. And every day is filled with flowers. I mean, how much cooler could that get? It's just perfect. So come join us for flower school. Did we hit our 50 yet?
We did. We shot right past that to 55. So
Thanks.
yay us.
Thanks, YouTube. I really appreciate that. You know, it's funny because you never know how the algorithms are really going to work and whether or not anybody will ever see something. But I know that the more times that people like something or the more times that they share something, the more that the powers that be will share our message. And that's something you can do for us. I need to do a shout out and a thank you to several of you that answered my plea last week. You know I was, oh, excuse me, now I need coffee. I was looking for people to help us out with reviews on our Google posting. And we went from like 5 reviews to maybe 30 reviews. I mean, it just went boop, 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 boop. So bless you. I really want to thank you for that. You know, people always say, what can we do for you? And how can I be a super tulip and all that? It's those little things that make a difference. Giving us the thumbs up, giving us the share, giving us a Google review, showing up for a live, answering questions, telling other students things. So my last request as I finish up here, because I did say I would finish and we did hit more than 50, but my last request is for those of you that have been a florist through several winters. Okay, so the older of longer term florist you are, the better. You're going to win on this one. But if you've got history of being a florist in the winter, if you could share one tip for all the new florists out there, one tip that would make it easier for them in the winter, because winter is hard. You're delivering in conditions. Now, if you're in the southern hemisphere, it can be hard because it's too hot. If you're in the northern hemisphere, it's hard because it's too cold. If you're in Hawaii, it's not hard, you're lucky. But you have your own problems because getting things onto the island is traumatic. So what is your tip for someone that is new to the world of winter floristry? How would you advise them to make it a little easier? So you can see now I've got my snake grass coming up, I've got the red twig dogwood, I've got the tulips in here, and it gives a very stark beauty. You know, definitely shouts winter. And then if you wanted to stretch it to California winter instead of Portland winter, I could go ahead and add in some California grown snapdragons and bring that orange up even higher, expanding the line of the arrangement, increasing the unity. So using my flower school teacher words, so I've got greater unity now. I have stronger line now coming up, and need to enhance it with another stem because right now the rhythm is off because this doesn't coordinate with this. It does to that, but there's no visual to connect it. So I've got to add in another.
Well, we have a couple things on your winter design tips. One is wrap everything. It's cold out there.
That's a great tip. Wrapping your flowers so that they don't get cold damage. I know one of our tulips sent me a note because she's like, how cold can my tulips, she was actually talking about cut tulips, how cold can my tulips go before they get damaged? And I'm like, you gotta keep them above freezing. And then we're trying to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit so we could talk the same vocabulary, because she was in Canada with Celsius and I was here in Oregon with Fahrenheit. And basically I said, as long as it's above freezing, you're okay. Just don't let them freeze. And then she sent me a note that they did all right. They survived. They didn't freeze. And I thought, oh, thank goodness, because that would have not been a good thing. Not at all. Any other tips out there?
One was not to promise a delivery time, but a range, because with weather conditions, you just don't know.
That's a good one. That's excellent, because you don't know. Every day is a new adventure. And I think people are getting more used to that because they're starting to order groceries online and other things online. I know I did a grocery order yesterday and I wanted it yesterday, but I didn't have that option. I had to pick a range of yesterday or today. Really? I want it now, but that wasn't even a choice. They said you can have it today or tomorrow. We'll decide when you get it. And I ended up getting it yesterday, but it was kind of interesting. I thought, that's actually a bonus for florists. Marisa, last comment from you?
Yep, just a couple over here. Lots of lotion, and also warm up your delivery van.
Yeah, because the van's already so cold, the flowers could get damaged in there. That's excellent. And lotion and chapstick. Oh my gosh, both of those to be taking care of yourself. So go ahead and add more tips in there. Those of you that are with us live, make sure you take a look and see, because I'm sure there's going to be lots of great information. If you haven't already liked and shared and all that, do that. But for now, I'm going to stop. We'll be getting some pictures of these things tomorrow to share out with you. It'll go on the Tulip group first, and then Friday I'll start sharing it out on social. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, do so. If you haven't come to flower school, do so. But for now, get out there and do something you love. See you next week.